I think when people go into coaching programs or health programs, nowadays they just assume that it's going to be this sacrificial kind of experience, right? Where they're going to go in, they're going to have to give up everything that they like, and they're going to just be eating these flavorless salads, and they'll have to worry about what salad dressing they're going to be using every day. When in reality, most of the time I sit down with people, and these are people that know nothing about a carnivore diet or know nothing about a keto diet or anything like that. And they think to themselves, I love meat, and they'll tell me that. They'll be like, I love eating meat. I hear that so much. And we've just, gotten so far away in culture the past couple of decades away from eating meat and giving ourselves permission to do that because the guidelines have been that way, that a lot of people just restrain themselves from foods that are extremely nutritious for you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've lost count of the amount of times where you start working with somebody and they say, but you're telling me I can have eggs and bacon? I say, yeah, of course you can have eggs and bacon. I say, oh yeah, but I thought I was avoiding them foods because of the fact that I thought, maybe they was potentially unhealthy because eggs have a bad press every now and then, and they're good one day and bad the next day. And when you really break it down, like we said earlier, into bioavailability, eggs are one of the most bioavailable sources of lots of vitamins and minerals, nearly all of them that you can get. Let's face it, an egg is to start off life. So it's got a lot of things in there that your body can really need and really use. And so let's go back to yourself a little bit when you said that you have, and towards the end of your journey, you're sort of more carnivore now, but you don't maybe have so many plants and fruits and vegetables in there. So do you concentrate on making sure you don't have any carbohydrates now in your nutrition? Or do you just think, well, I'll focus on my animal foods, and if they sneak in there a little bit, that's okay?
I found that I do really well. And, I think there's something called metabolic flexibility, right? It's this idea that once you go lower carbohydrate, especially once you start going keto, you start building in this metabolic machinery that allows you to use fat for fuel or to use ketones for fuel. So you can be a lot more adaptable to, let's say you do go out and you have a cup of white rice. It's not going to affect you in the same way that it might before. So I find that, now I eat a metabolically flexible diet. So a lot of the times I'm very low carbohydrate and kind of in ketosis, but sometimes I'll have some potatoes or I'll have a little white rice if I'm eating out, and it doesn't really affect me very much. I've really been able to be so conscious of what I'm eating and so understanding of what comes into my body, that I understand, okay, if I'm going to, have a sauce, right? Italians love sauce. I've found that tomato puree doesn't really have any anti-nutrients in it, right? So that's something that I can enjoy. It'll make me, it'll satisfy the Italian part of me, and I can add that to a little bit of the meat that I'm eating.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm pleased you brought up metabolic flexibility, because I do work sometimes with athletes. And that's always the point of what I'm trying to get to with athletes is metabolic flexibility, because you need to be able to pull on all sorts of different kind of energy sources when you are doing whatever you're doing, whether you're doing endurance exercise or whether you're doing weight training, strength training, whatever you're doing, you need to be metabolically flexible. So that doesn't mean that you always have to be a carnivore or you always have to be pumping in all the carbohydrates into you. It means you have to be, let's say, a bit of both. You have to have all those animal produce in there to make sure that you're supporting a strong body, but you also do potentially need those real food carbohydrates to supplement your exercise or your strength work, whatever you're trying to do. I don't know if you work with any athletes, because sometimes people say, well, it can be a little bit of a gray area, because you're telling people to have carbohydrates and then you're telling people to make sure that you take out carbohydrates out of the nutrition. So just to clear the air a little bit there, what I want to say is when I tell people to have carbohydrates, I always make sure the real food carbohydrates, so they're things like berries or raw honey or sweet potatoes, maybe a little bit of white rice like you mentioned there. It's always that real food carbohydrates. We want to get people off processed food. Lots of athletes, and it is big within the athlete sector, is that they have these gels and bars and chews, and even now it's creeping into keto, where in the keto world they're making all this processed food and calling it keto, and it's kind of like we're getting lost a little bit in there because it's still going to be processed food.
Yeah, they sell these keto bars. at the grocery store, and they've got everything imaginable in them, chemical wise, the polydextrose. I mean, you name it, it's in this bar. And I think that's really the important part. If we could just get people to eat, fruits, vegetables, meat, seafood, even nuts and seeds, we could probably take care of a lot of the issues just there. And it doesn't have to feel like a diet either. I think a lot of the people, that come to me feel like they're going to be sacrificing part of themselves if they, kind of give up these foods. And what they start to realize is once they get 3, kind of 4 weeks into it and things get rolling, they start to go, oh, not only do I feel better and I'm less hungry, my energy's better,